Artists, we have some great music going on in the background, so enjoy the background music as we dive into painting level E. Let's look at what we're going to be learning. So painting level E, which is right there, it says I can mix paint with tints where I can see the color and white in the mix. I can paint with tones where I can see the color and gray in the mix. I can paint with shades where I can see color and black in the mix. I can layer paint. I can plan my painting, and I can paint from the background to the foreground. Ooh, that's very different than what we've experienced in the past because we are going to be using something called tempera paint. Okay, so diving right on in, we are getting our sketchbook. Now you're going to notice I have things on my sketchbook already, and that's for speed of filming. You're putting your name on your sketchbook, you're writing painting, and of course this is level E, so we're putting in E. I put it under printmaking. We then have some more writing to do. We're going to go ahead and write the word tint, T-I-N-T, tint, and we're going to put just a little circle. And we're going to write that a tint is color plus white. That's what it's called. When you make a tint of color, it is a color plus white. An example of this would be pink. It's a tint of red. Next, we're going to write tone, T-O-N-E. We're going to draw another circle, and this is a color plus gray. A color plus gray. Most colors that are painted in your house or that you see out in the world are a tone of color. It is color mixed with gray. Then we are going to do shade. Shade, S-H-A-D-E, and another circle. A shade is a color plus black. So maroon is a shade of red. Okay, we're then going to draw a line like normal. And then we're just going to ignore this bottom half right now because I'm going to talk about how to make tints, tones, and shades. Okay, I'm moving this sketchbook out of the way because I already have some color done for us. So first off, the color will come in a container. I like to use these ones right here. We always store the cap on the little stand. And then, just in case, you always want to check, does it feel gooey? If it feels like if you do this, I can feel that the air can go in and out. I can also feel that the paint is all mixed. If your paint wasn't all mixed or the air couldn't go in and out, it means yours is clogged. And you want to find this little guy. This is your helper that you can stab in there, doop, 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 and unclog it. Okay. We know on the art room a dot, dot, dot is a lot, lot, lot. That's right. So we're going to go to a palette. And on a palette, we're going to make 1, 2, 3, 4 dots of white. And then we're going to do 1 dot of a color. I happen to do magenta. Now let's talk about that. These look like they are the same, but they are different. This one is labeled magenta, and this one is labeled red, if you can see that. Red looks like red paint, but if I want to mix a color like orange, I have to use magenta because this is the mixer. So we have paint that looks like a color, and then we have paint that acts like the color. So I put down a dot of magenta because I'm mixing. So whenever I want to mix, do I use red or magenta? That's right, I use magenta. So then to mix things together, I'm going to use a palette knife, because this saves all the paint. It doesn't put any paint into my brush, and it makes it easy to use. I take it and I swipe it all together, and then I mix, mix, mix. My goal is to keep where I mix as small as possible. As small as possible. I'm always pulling the paint to the inside. I'm looking for solid color. And then once I have solid color, I'm ready to put it down. Now I want to double check. Does that look like there's red in it? Well, in this case, that's magenta. Yes. Does it look like there's white in it? Yes. If it still looked like this, I did it wrong. If it looked like this, I did it wrong. But once I have it, I'm gonna take that, I'm gonna go back to my sketchbook. I'm actually gonna use my palette knife and I'm gonna put that down. And this is a fun little opportunity for you to learn how to paint with something that's not a brush. And it's a little bit different technique and it leaves a little bit different mark. So go ahead and give that a try. Once I've done that, I need to clean my palette knife. Painters always have a paper towel or a wet rag they can wipe off, and now I'm ready to go to the next thing, which says tone. That's a color plus gray. So making sure I have a clean palette knife, which is much easier to clean than a brush. I'm gonna do that swipe again, but this time look at my black. The black is extremely strong, so rather than do a whole dot, I'm gonna take the smallest amount I can onto my palette knife, and that is what I'm gonna pull over here. Look how small that black is, and then I'm gonna mix, mix, mix. And the more I mix, the more that black is gonna start to affect what I see. And I see it, like all of a sudden you'll be like, oh, I've got it, and then more color will pop out. You mix, 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 okay, until you get yourself a nice solid gray. Now if you need a little bit more black, be ever so careful when you grab it that you're grabbing, see, you can barely see what I took there, that you're grabbing teeny, teeny, tiny amounts of black at a time. Okay, once you have that gray, so that it looks like 50% white and 50% black, there we go. We're gonna take that gray and now we're gonna combine it with color. Now I have 4 dots of yellow and we're not sure how much we're gonna need. We want it to look 50-50. So I'll swipe in 1 dot of yellow and I'll mix that up. So to me, when I look at that, oop, got close to my red. To me, when I look at that, that looks still pretty gray. It's got a little yellow in it, but it still looks pretty gray. I'm gonna do another swipe. Ooh, that looks like it. That looks like it's yellow and gray mixed together. It doesn't look like yellow. It doesn't look like that. See, if I put them close together, so you can see it almost looks green, doesn't it? It doesn't look yellow and it doesn't look gray. I then would take that and fill that in right here. Some of us might call that army green, but now we know that's really a tone of yellow. Okay, I've got to clean off. And now I'm ready to make a shade. So I have 1, 2, 3, 5 dots. Let's talk about this. We have blue that looks like blue. Ta-da! And then we have turquoise. These are different. Blue looks like blue. Turquoise acts like blue. So if I want to do any mixing, I'm using turquoise. If I want just plain old blue, I use the blue. Since I'm doing a mixing, I have turquoise dots down, which in our video kind of look black. I have 4 dots of turquoise, and now I'm going to take those. I'm going to go back to this black, grabbing a small amount of black, and I'm going to swoosh. I'm going to swoosh from this direction. All this together, and I'm going to mix, mix, mix. Now this is where it can go wrong quickly, because that black, remember, it's really strong. Now that still looks like turquoise, so I'm going to go get a teensy bit more of that black. Mix, mix, mix. There it is. It's not turquoise, it's not black. That then will go right here into my shade spot. I'm not going to take the time to make this pretty, but you would fill it all in. Okay, once you've done that, it is time to plan out your drawing. Now remember, I talked about how we have to have a middle ground, background, and foreground. So you draw it in this order. Right now at the bottom of your page, draw something that goes up and draw it pretty big. Okay, I just made a random creature. Draw something that goes up from the bottom up. Then we need something that is in the middle ground. That means in the middle from the bottom to the top, it starts in the middle. So I did a tree. So I started it in the middle and then I brought it up. And you can kind of barely see it because I'm going to show you another trick. Then I have to do the background. So I drew this horizon line. And then on the horizon line, I drew this little house. And notice that this guy is at the bottom, this one starts in the middle, and this one starts all the way up top. The further back something is, the higher in the page it goes. Now, after I did that, I went ahead and I painted my sky. But notice, oh, Miss Russ, you went over top of your tree. That's because you're going to paint everything in the background first. So let's talk about this. I made some mountains in the background. You're going to be able to use these little cups. You get three cups, 3 lids. That's it. You need a new color, you're going to have to clean a cup. And then the trick is to only ever put the amount of paint that you need in this cup. So I'm going to be doing those mountains. So I just did a little bit of paint. Of course, I did small amounts of everything because I am not doing a big area. I'm going to use one of my palette knives to mix it up. And then I'm going to paint it with kind of texture because I liked how that palette knife let me make texture. So I'm going to let it be kind of wiggly and wobbly. And if it gets over the house, I'm not going to worry about that because I paint all of the backgrounds first and then I let it dry and I can put other paint over top. Okay, so we'll pretend I painted in all that area. Well, what does that look like to put other paint in over top? Well, let's make ourselves some green and I'm going to show you. So I'm going to take 1, 2, 3, 4 dots of yellow, 1 dot of turquoise. Ooh, Miss Russ, you got a little excited there on your turquoise. I'm going to mix those together. It's going to be a darker green than I was envisioning. And then here's another secret. Anything that's in the background or middle ground is going to be grayed out. So to make it look realistic, if you add a little bit of white to anything or a little bit of black to anything that goes in the background so it kind of gets diluted, it'll look more realistic. And anything that's in your foreground will be brighter. Then you're going to notice we also have different kinds of brushes. So I'm going to take something called a fan brush. You can experiment with these. And then I'm going to go in over the top and doing my tree, because in a real tree I would see sky through there. Not necessarily everywhere, but in different parts I would see through sky. And so you are going to follow the same pattern. You can paint and you'll cover up your lines slightly as you paint, and then as you get closer and closer to the front, you have brighter colors and you can go over the top of paint you don't like with other paint. All right, I make this look easy, so don't be afraid to use practice paper if you need it before you dive into making your mini piece of art. Happy art creating. Bye.